So I just want to make a short recording showing off my space station in orbit around the moon. I've done a fair bit of science on the moon, but it got a bit laborious flying back and forth, dropping off science and such. I tried landing with one of these mobile laboratory modules, but it was just huge and wheelie. I think, yeah, that was in my previous video. So I made a smaller craft that just has all of the sciencey equipment on it. And it lands at a particular location, collects a heap of science, and then flies back up and docks with this, and then I use the lab to reset all the experiments, and I transfer all of the experiments over to the command module of the space station, and then periodically I fly out. Once I've collected a heap of science, I'll fly out with this shuttle here, collect all the science out of that module into this one, and then deorbit this one and reclaim the science. I think my last science collection was like 600 or something points, which is enough for unlocking 1.5 top level science categories, which gives you like these nuclear engines or this kethane tank here or something. So the other side of what this does, it's got a heap of solar panels on it, and it's also got a big kethane processing plant here. So it it takes the kethane out of these green tanks and converts it into fuel, and the fuel is stored in this one here, which I flew up separately. I think I flew the science craft. No, that's right. The previous shuttle delivery brought that module here. Let me just take Bill out for an EVA. So the previous launch, I brought out the science transfer shuttle, this module here, so it undocks here, and that's one separate module with its own control and our own stabilization and fuel and such, so it can dock by itself. And in the mission before that, I brought out the science lander and this kethane processing module. And then the mission before that was this central core here, that's the processor, the mobile lab, hitchhiker stowaway compartment for extra crew, and the command module. And I just docked this section here, which contains the kethane miner landing module. So this one here, let me just switch over to the other craft. This one here is designed to land on the surface of a body, for now the moon, and it has a drill on the bottom, and this drill extends into the surface and it collects kethane, which I then fly back up into the orbit, and reprocess here to produce more fuel, so I can keep flying this back down and collecting more science. And once I've mined the moon for all the science it's worth, then I'm hoping that I'll be able to build an enormous tugboat that will just drag all of this out to Minmus. I can collect more science there. Let me just retract that drill, and then so yeah, just a nice little space station. I may need to ship out a few more tanks of kethane. These were empty when I launched them, so they're not too hard to move around. But I had a huge amount of trouble docking this thing because I'd placed these reaction control thrusters really poorly. It was its own contiguous module, and it was placed pretty close to the center of gravity. But I don't know if I'd placed them off axis or something, but it was just a mongrel. Like every time I'd try to translate to the side, I would also start spinning along a different axis. It just made it really difficult to line anything up. That's the most important thing I've found with making docking possible, is to make sure your reaction control thrusters are balanced, so you don't start spinning when you try to fly in a direction, or you don't start translating in a direction when you try to just rotate on the spot. And the other thing is to use chase cam. If you try to use any other camera, then none of the keys really map to what you're seeing on your screen. So if you put it in chase cam, it aligns the camera with your buttons and makes everything much easier. This science lander works very well. It's got a low center of gravity because this science module is on the bottom, and so it's got some big beefy legs on it. Flies really nicely. And I don't have the huge mobile processing lab attached to it. So just fly it back up into space and then reset the experiments. We've got a couple goo experiment blobs here and the Science Junior on the bottom. And yeah, very impressive panning by. I'm run out of fuel. No, I got tons of fuel. I've got these little yellow warts on here. It's part of the Kerbal attachment system. I haven't used it. I did use a sort of like a predecessor, but you can somehow like grab a cable from them and then fly over to something else and attach that cable, and then that lets you pump fuel between two things, which I thought might be handy, but I haven't really tried to use it. Yep. Alright, better get this dude back into... I think he came out of here. These lights on. Oh god, these are... Jesus. Grab. Okay. Bye-bye.